Welcome to the Truth in This Art. We're once again doing Truth in This Art Beyond, and we're in Philadelphia. And today, I have the privilege of being in conversation with a low brass multi-instrumentalist, an educator, composer, and arranger living in Philadelphia. From jazz to salsa to ska music, they work in many genres. They're a member of the 7-piece brass heavy band SNACKTIME, which was created out of necessity at the height of COVID, performing free shows in Rittenhouse Square and quickly amassing local notoriety, and is known for its soul-energizing street performances. Please welcome Sam Gellerstein. Welcome to the podcast.
Yo, Rob, thank you so much for having me, man. Glad to be here.
Thank you for coming on. And, it's like, as a fellow, I mean, yours is much more immaculate, but as a fellow large bearded man, it's like Voltron. It's like forming. It's great.
Thank you so much, man. I appreciate it. No, it's a benchmark and a landmark of my faith. So I know everyone likes it.
Yeah, that's great. So before we get too embedded and too deep into the convo, I want to start off with sort of this introductory thing. Like, what's the story? What's the Sam Gellerstein story? Where does the story begin? How many years have you been playing music? Give us those sort of details.
Cool. So I was born in Brooklyn, New York. And I lived there for about 4 years as a kid. So I was raised, and then I moved to Fort Lauderdale, Florida, where I was raised. I played like a lot of sports growing up, and but I always had like a real love for music. My mom was always doing community theater. She went to like arts camp when she was a kid, and so music's always been in my life. You know, it's like I always remember with my mom and my dad playing different records that I really was attached to. So I went to middle school, and then I chose to be in the band and started picking up the trombone in about 2006. And then I'm just kind of a person that, like, once I once I'm good at something, I like to stick to it because I like instant gratification, obviously. So, I was good at the trombone, so I kept to it, and I kept practicing, getting better. And then I went to high school at Dillard Center for the Arts in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, which is a music magnet. And I was there. I was playing football, but I was also, playing in the jazz band, and I was going back and forth. And, I was doing good at both, but, not excellent at either. So something had to give. And then the summer of my freshman year, I broke my ankle playing football. And then summer of my sophomore year, I cracked my sternum, and push came to shove, and I was just done getting hurt. And that same summer, I went to the Florida State Jazz Camp, and it was a lot more rewarding. And it was a lot better to get praised for being good at trombone than getting yelled at for football stuff. So I determined to focus more on music, and that was around 2010. So I finished up at Dillard Center for the Arts, and that was kind of the place where we would do a lot of like national jazz competitions, and it kind of got me into the doorway with like other sorts of national jazz camps and bands and stuff like that. So I made the determination that I wanted to go to school for music. So in 2012, I went to University of the Arts in Philadelphia, as you guys know, on Broad Street. And I did my undergrad there. I loved it. And then I did my graduate degree at Temple University.
Yeah.
So following that, I got done with grad school, and it was 2018. I was at that time still through grad school. I was working at Federal Donuts, cooking solo, that whole camp. So that's sort of my foray into food and drink. And then after 2018, I graduated grad school. I started teaching in the school district of Philadelphia. 2020, the pandemic rolled around. So I was teaching in the school district until 2022. But around 2020 is when SNACKTIME started. And I don't know, I guess we can get more into the sort of SNACKTIME later. Yeah. But yeah, I just been following a path, man. Just kind of been following what feels right for the past 10 years here in Philly, and it's taken me to some really cool places.
I love that. I love when you're following something, and the instant gratification. I mean, It's us millennials. Even though I don't really
Yeah.
ascribe to that, but yeah,
And I say that it's kind of a joke. Like obviously, like anyone could tell you like I work my ass off and like I work really hard, but I like when the hard work leads to something. So
yeah. And I mean, it's very, very similar. Like I've been doing the podcast thing for it'll be 14 years, and and then, if it's like, oh yeah, overnight success, I was like, no, it's not, not at all. It's just more work and more fun and more opportunities and just kind of following that path. And I always go back and think about some of those early inspirations and, reminds me of why I'm doing what I'm doing. So for you, what are some of your like early inspirations, whether it's music, whether it's education, whether it's even in food? So tell me about that.
I'll tell you that the first time I knew I loved music was, beyond the fact that I loved a lot of records growing up, but the first thing I really remember touching me musically was the movie Drumline. I saw in the theaters. I guess came out in 2001 or 2002, and there's a scene where they're playing "I Believe I Can Fly," which they're doing like some sort of like whatever, orchestral high school band arrangement of it. And then at one point, like Nick Cannon goes into some sort of like hip hoppy drum cadence thing. And I'll never forget, excuse the honking. As you guys know, Philly driving is no fun. So excuse the honking. But yeah, so they bring into this hip hop cadence and I was just like floored. I couldn't believe it. It was like I didn't even know like, what I was feeling. And then later in the movie, In the Stone plays, and it's just like so much just amazing music in that movie that I never had heard before. And it's not like I wasn't hip to Earth, Wind, and Fire or whatever, but it was just like not necessarily in my daily listening. So like listening to that music really kind of changed my life. And then later on in 2004, I saw School of Rock, which was if you guys are familiar with that, a Jack Black movie where he's a substitute teacher and he makes the kids learn how to rock. And yeah, that movie I watched over and over and over and over and over again. And there was something about it that just touched me and just something that really like resonated with me. So those two movies, and then excuse me. And then later on that year, I think it was maybe 2005, Green Day's American Idiot dropped. And that's the first record that I ever like wore out. Absolutely played it every single second that I could. And those were like my initial things in the music. And then later on, I hadn't even played instruments until this point. Like I didn't start playing trombone until 2006. So it's like I wanted to play drums or guitar or bass like a normal person, but life didn't lead me that way. So yeah, so I got picked up the trombone and then started to learn about these ska bands, and ska took me to the world of punk rock and ska and reggae and learning all these other kinds of musics. And I saw like bands like Street Level Manifesto. That was my first show that I was ever able to go to by myself when I was like 13 years old or 12 years old. And I remember like crowd surfing at that show and like this feeling of euphoria that I just don't think that will ever be replicated again in my life. Just that feeling of like listening to your favorite songs on top of a crowd. It was just very, very magical. And that's a really transformative moment for me, is that first show. Is Whole Wheat Bread, Street Level Manifesto, Really Fish, and MXPX. So yeah, really, really good stuff. And that's just, the beginning of my musical life and shit. And that's kind of what set me up for the rest of my life, I feel like.
Nice. Nice. Thank you for sharing that. And it's funny because it kind of answers two of those questions. So you did a little bit of a daily double there. So shout out to you.
Yeah, I try to be as efficient as possible.
So let's talk about Philly a little bit. And like how does like Philadelphia kind of inspire your creativity currently? And what would you say its cultural identity is in the city?
Yeah, so since I've been in Philly in 2012, I've really always felt this feeling of like not to use a tired analogy, but obviously the city of brotherly love, et cetera, et cetera. But like from the beginning of me being here, there's just such a community of, especially in my community, before I knew anything else out of the arts really communities, it's really about each one teach one and bringing people up, and not about, you know, making your brand the best. It's about, you know, making the next thing better for everybody else. So I think that that's a really big benchmark of the Philadelphia art scene is taking people with you and sharing the information that you have versus making people figure it out on their own. And I think that that's something that I really try to do myself. In a lot of the work that I do, I really want to create a lot of opportunities for people. I know how hard it is to be a musician. I know how hard it is to be an artist. And if I can do any work in my own life to create opportunities for other people, then I think I'm doing, you know, what I hope everyone else can do, and also what was done for me as well.
So I've kind of gotten that sense in doing these interviews up there, you know, recording a lot of them at Rec Philly and being around sort of creative folks, and, you know, people are like interested in what I'm doing, whereas in some pockets, because I'm based in Baltimore, so I go up there, and in some pockets, you know, in other places, people will say, "Oh, okay, cool. I guess that's the thing that you're doing," whereas there, people seem genuinely like, "Oh, tell me more about this," and I kind of got that, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's really like, you know, you have places like New York where it's this place where it is so insanely busy, and there's so much you could get into there. And it's like in Philly, we have this same sort of big art community, but with a little bit more room to, like, not necessarily flourish, because obviously it's hard to do that, but there's just more room for more people to be here and to shine. So I think that that's a really big, important part of what's happening here, is that everyone is like trying to, like I said before, bring each other up. And, you know, it's not about like, if I create this opportunity for myself or for somebody else, rather, than it won't be there for myself.
Yeah. And I think some places that have this sort of idea of scarcity, I think Baltimore isn't in that way. I think Baltimore is very similar to Philadelphia. And I think Philadelphia is a little further ahead in terms of, you know, that sort of trajectory where, you know, there are resources. You can see people that are doing things. And I think we're right behind it. We're coming up next in that regard. And yeah, I think there is this sort of sentiment here where I'm a Black podcaster. That can only be one of us, you know? And it's like, I rather help the next guy versus look at them as competition. And that's really all my thing has been about. And what this really comes out of, it's like, who's doing the interesting work? Who's in the fringes? How can I talk with them and give them a platform to share their story? That's really what this is for me.
It's a beautiful thing, man, because it's important, because, you know, it's like a lot of people are like, oh, you know, there's so many podcasts, so many this, so many that. But like, if you can touch one extra person that maybe wouldn't have heard my story or another person's story or your story, then that's an effective thing, man. Like, it's not always about having to be famous or have this crazy reach. It's just sometimes it's about starting with, like, how can I directly communicate and work with my community?
Yeah.
And that's just by doing what makes you happy.
So with that, I think that's almost a natural segue into talking about snack time a bit. So let's get into that. How did it come about, and what is the significance behind the name?
Cool. So basically, during the pandemic, I alongside Jeff Bradshaw started Jeff Bradshaw is like a local Philadelphia, like, kind of celebrity musician. He tours the country and is beloved in the community. But he and I sort of were just discussing over the pandemic, in the wake of the deaths of Breonna Taylor and Ahmaud Arbery and George Floyd, the likes, that we wanted to do some sort of demonstration using our instruments. And we had this conversation. We were like, oh, we want to get a huge band together and bring it to the streets. And, you know, we had the idea to be like, let's do it at the art museum. So the art museum in Philadelphia, we got, those are the Rocky Steps, if anyone from not Philadelphia is listening to this. But so yeah, we all got the steps, and there's, you know, 100 plus of us, and we just played, and we made sure we were talking about, you know, holding police accountable, and that sort of pivoted into more demonstrations, which we would bring out headcount.org and other community leaders that could talk and make their messages heard louder because of the bolstering from the music. Because everyone loves music, so it's like it would bring a lot of different kinds of people out. And so basically we did that for a couple months, and then it sort of naturally dissipated a little bit as the world opened back up, because people were getting back to work, etc. So prior to that, I'll try to make it brief. I was working with a woman named Jen Zavala, who owns a restaurant called Wanna Tamale. At this point, she was just doing pop-ups. And she asked me to basically, if I wanted to do a collaborative event with her, it would be the mixture of highlighting lesser-known chefs and different musician groups every week, or every month rather. So the first one was me and her, and I hired a group of friends, and I called the event SNACKTIME, and so this was January of 2020. We booked the next one. It was wildly successful, sold out, and then the pandemic happened. So then after that is when we did, when I started to do Clarence Hall for Justice, and then as we get back to outdoor dining opening back up, Jen hit me up. She's like, hey, like, you know, I'm going to be having these big lines for this event, and I would love to, you know, have you guys come out and like make some music, and like, you know, and the problem was that we couldn't necessarily bring amplifiers and microphones because it was outside. So I figured, like, you know, I've been in brass bands so long that I figured, okay, like, let's make it a brass band. So we lined up and we played, you know, I called a bunch of friends and we just played a bunch of covers, and it wasn't even necessarily like it was like a smash hit. I think that we were so far away from people, and people were like kind of like, you know, being a little cautious of, you know, big wind instruments during the pandemic. But we just liked it. It just felt so good to play with friends. It felt so good to, you know, we made a little bit of money too, which is always nice, but like it just felt so amazing to like playing music with your friends. We hadn't played music in months besides like in our house, you know, and there was like a big to do about all these online recordings. So everyone was just basically recording themselves and making like little bolstered together Instagram videos. So like to play real music with friends was so amazing. So then following the that we kind of just started to like go out. Outdoor dining opened back up, so we just started playing outside of this restaurant called Park, which is in the middle of Rittenhouse Square, and people were just excited. The streets were closed off, but people hadn't heard live music in literally months, so people would just, you know, they'd have their cocktails or they'd be sitting outside eating their meals, and they would just watch us play. And we would do that two or three times a week, and the steam just kind of kept picking up. And then then we started playing birthday parties, and then we started playing this and that, and then the city would be like, oh, and then, you know, it kind of kept rolling on. And, you know, basically through playing at the Park, we've really been able to get to all these amazing places, and it's been a really wild ride.
That's wonderful, and I love hearing about that. And that's really one of the reasons I became aware. I was like, what's going on here? And started just looking into it, looking deeper. And I just know when I planned out this whole series in Philly, I was like, I'm getting one of these dudes for an interview. That was literally what I said. So what would you say you'd want someone to kind of take away from, you know, SNACKTIME, like show SNACKTIME performance or what have you?
So the three pillars of Snack Time, the organization, the band, like Snack Time, as much as it is the band, it has like many different facets. We do food and wine curation, we do events, we do parties, we do we do community outreach. We try to do everything. But the three pillars of it, regardless of what we're doing, are food, community, and music. And the biggest one out of all of those to me is community, because to me, music is community. Dancing and gathering with your friends and taking a short time out of your life to kind of hopefully put a couple of those things that are stressing you out and just put it to the side and just have a moment to dance with people that you don't know, and not be so standoffish and not be so afraid to be open. And I really hope that anyone that comes to a SNACKTIME performance just gives themselves that grace to, be comfortable, be in the moment, and just enjoy yourself.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
So my take on SNACKTIME, on the social media stalking and so far in this conversation, you guys like the people's champs. You're bringing music to the people. And from your vantage point and being a musician, like, what would you say some of the alternative ways of getting your stuff out there that could be helpful to someone that's like running into a roadblock and it's like, I don't know how to get it out there? Is it take it to the streets,
Well, here's the thing. I personally have been, I have been doing different projects and different bands for literally since 2006. I've been making original music with different people, and I think a big thing about it is just keep creating, never stop, even if it's maybe not 100% financially successful.
Yeah.
If you believe in it, other people will too. If you really believe in it and take the steps to really put yourself out there, people will do it. But you have to be creative in the ways you, not necessarily organize yourself, but I guess you have to be creative in the ways that you put yourself out there, because it's not enough anymore in 2022 to just be a musician and be like, okay, I made this album and it's on Instagram and now it's on Spotify. People are inundated with so much social media that you see something, you forget it instantly. So it's what you have to do is, we were lucky. We were a band during a time in a certain place where we were able to go out and make music, and people were kind of almost in a way forced to listen to us. But there are other creative solutions to being able to be heard and to touching people. And I think that's the most important thing, is remembering that we are, when it comes down to it, entertainment, and we are there to make people's lives better. If you want to make music for yourself, that's one thing. And if you want to make music for musicians, that's another thing. But if you want your music to be heard and appreciated by a lot of people, you kind of have to do things that people appreciate. So just remembering to always appreciate the audience and think, what would they want as the listener versus what can I give as a musician? Because I think a lot of times musicians just think that everyone in the world wants every single note, every single chord, every single rhythm. Some people just want to hear a beautiful song. So yeah,
that's good. And I think that's where we'll wrap on the real questions. I got 5 rapid fire questions for you, and then we'll wrap up to the point where we get to the shameless plugs. But here's these 5 rapid fire ones, and don't overthink them. They're ridiculous questions, but they're fun questions. All right.
Got it.
So here's the first one. Actually, I have 4. What is, you can make this Philadelphia specific if you like. What is an overrated snack to you?
Overrated snack. Well, I guess I have to say this because no, I'm not gonna. I'm allergic. I'm allergic to these things, so I can't just say it. But people always are really fired up about pistachios. I'm allergic to them, but they're just a nut, man. They're not any better than a walnut or hazelnut. There's a pistachio. Other than that, thanks, man. You know what? I got one for you. I hate sour cream and onion chips.
Really?
I think they're nasty. I don't like them at all.
I'm allergic to cherries and passion fruit.
I love cherries. Oh, yeah. I love passion fruit.
Yeah, it's just a lot of cocktails I can't have that in there, so we swap it with
Is
something
it
else.
all stone fruit?
I don't think it's all stone fruit. Like I like plums. So,
Yeah.
I think it's like passion fruit. And I've learned by mistake. It was a cocktail named after me. I had it. I was like, oh, I might die here. This is not great. So this one, now this is the inverse. What's an underrated snack?
Underrated snack. Good question. Man. I don't see a lot of people talking about this candy, and it's my favorite candy. It's these nerd clusters, these nerd bites.
Oh, nice.
They basically think of a nerd rope, but chopped up into little bite-sized pieces. Those are really good. I see a lot of people talking about them. Yeah, those are really good, and I think more people should be eating them.
I'm a big fan of nerds, especially like the OG, triple OG, the what is it? The grape.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
They're good, man.
What are three quintessential, and this actually would be the last one since it's three. What are three quintessential Philadelphia things one must do during like a visit? Like what are the things that you're doing that you'll say, you know what, you guys should check this out. Here's some three things you should do over let's say a long weekend.
That's a good question. I'm so food and drink motivated that I feel like a lot of my things are going to be that. But I think that if you can while you're here, I would make it a point to go to South Philly Barbacoa. That's like, I mean, as much good food as there is in the city. I mean, I think that's just like it's like a church-like experience to go there. So that's a big one. The other one I would say is that I do think Philadelphia Museum of Art is really beautiful, but just more so like I think driving around, walking around, seeing the cities, there's so much different beautiful things on every block that you can really like. Every single place you go, you'll find a different pocket, a different culture, and it's really exciting. You might be at one moment in a neighborhood with mostly, maybe people from Mexico, and then you might turn the corner and be in a place with people from Vietnam, and all the restaurants and all the different things you could see and experience just by like walking around and seeing what there is to see. So definitely exploring everywhere, not just like the Rocky Steps or seeing like, all the Liberty Bell. Like, maybe I'm anti colonizer history, but that's just me. And then see Snack Time play. Yeah.
I was going to say that if you didn't do it. That was the funny thing about that.
I'm not going to say that, but yeah, I'm not going to say that. I think that, and I'm joking, but I'm not joking. I think that I'm really proud of what we've been able to curate, and I'm really proud. And I think the people who come to our shows are the best that Philadelphia has to offer. And that's not just because they support us. I think it's because it's a community that really respects each other and appreciates each other and appreciates what we're doing. And I think that a lot of times musicians are not appreciated. I think they're sometimes treated as like, okay, like, yeah, music's always here and it's always going to be good. And that's sort of the intersection of what Snack Time is, that it's realizing that the food and music are very, very similar. Like, we are all treated as if like the food's always going to be good. It's always going to be hot. It's always going to be on time. And I don't care how you're feeling that day. I don't care how, whatever your day is going. It doesn't matter to me because the food is my food and needs to be good. It's the same way with music. Music is like, okay, like, I don't care if your girlfriend broke up with you. The music still needs to be good. Any other job, you're allowed to be like, hey, I'm having a bad day. Like, hey, like, I can't really do this as well. But like, so there's a lot of pressure on us as kind of providers of entertainment and enjoyment. So that's kind of what it is that it's putting it all on a not a platform, but it's putting it all on display for people to really appreciate and understand and kind of respect, I guess.
That's well said. And yeah, I agree with you. So yeah. in the final moments here, shameless plugs, man. You already kind of started it. So let's kind of cap it. Website, social media, all of that good stuff. The floor is yours.
Yeah, one thing about me, I'm always gonna plug Snack Time. So, yeah, we're gonna be, if you're around DC We'll be at the Anthem, opening up for the Disco Biscuits on February 4th. SnackTimePhilly.com. We're SnackTime on Instagram. Through Instagram, you'll find all the other socials. The only one I really personally pay attention to is Instagram. But yeah, we're on Spotify, Apple Music, and Tidal. Check it out.
There you have it, folks. I want to again thank Sam Gellerstein for coming on to the podcast. And I'm Rob Lee, saying there's art, culture, snacks in and around your neighborhood. You just got to look for it. The Truth in This Art Beyond is produced with the generous support from Raisin in the Sun, Black Art Matters ATX, and Six Square. Raisin in the Sun is an Austin-based nonprofit organization whose work focuses on cultivating resilience through art and environmental initiatives. Find more out about their mission at raisinинthesun.org. Black Art Matters ATX focuses on amplifying Black voices in Austin's cultural conversation by financially supporting new work from Black artists based in Austin. Learn more about their work at blackartmattersatx.org. And Six Square. Their work focuses on preserving and celebrating the historical legacy of the African American community that once thrived in Central East Austin. Learn more about their work at sixsquare.org. Thank you all for your generous support.